Good morning or afternoon, depending on where you are. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you for being here for today's TLC talk. We'll get started about 5 after the hour with today's presentation. But in the meantime, I'm just curious where folks are tuning in from. So if you wouldn't mind putting into the chat where you're tuning in from, what institution or organization you're from, and what you do there. So whether you be a faculty member or an administrator, we'd like to know where you're tuning in from. See some familiar names and faces. I know Claflin always represents, so we appreciate that always. Good afternoon for those just jumping into the room. Very excited for today's conversation and presentation. So we'll get started at about 12:05 Eastern Time. So in the meantime, I've asked for folks to pop into the chat where they're tuning in from, what institution you're at, or what organization you are affiliated with, as well as your discipline, or if you're an administrator, what you do at your institution. Very excited to see who has joined us today and who is in the space. Good to see you, Matt, as always, from Claflin. Dr. Wilson, I see you from Shaw. Good to see everybody. Oh, and Fayetteville State. We love an addition. We'll have to chat about that, Dr. Wilson. So if folks don't know, so UNCF's office is based in the DC area. We are based in DC, so I live in Maryland, but I'm always happy when it's sunny outside. So I don't, people like to draw out conversations by talking about the weather, but I feel like in springtime, it's always super important to talk about the weather transition. So it's pretty sunny and warm here today. So I'm very excited for positive weather. I think that is always an indicator of a good day. So hopefully it is warm and dry wherever you are tuning in from. Good to see you, Dr. Fredericks. It's been a while.
Yes, it's been a moment. How are you
good.
doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good, good.
All right. So it's about 12:04. So I will get started for folks that don't know me. So my name is Geneva Dampere. I serve as the Director of Strategy and Operations within UNCF's Teaching and Learning Center. So as part of our effort to make sure that we are supporting our faculty and administrators on our campus, or campuses, within the UNCF member network of 37 HBCUs, we try to create programming that allows you all to convene and connect with one another and learn best practices. So that's why we're here for today's TLC Talks. It's a monthly series that we do throughout the academic year to just share some trending topics that are relevant to your teaching praxis or to your support of our HBCU students. So very excited for today's conversation. We are joined today by Gerar Pope. So he is currently serving as the director of the Testing and Evaluation Center at Lane College. He has been in the field of education for over 28 years, having worked his way up at various unique levels from elementary education to the college level. His current role allows him to directly assist students as they transition from the classroom to the workforce. And he's writing his dissertation right now, and he's a PhD student getting his doctoral degree at American College of Education. So his dissertation will explore the lived experiences with HBCU participants in a career pathways initiative. So very excited for the work that is relevant to not only his doctoral work, but also relevant to faculty and administrators on our campuses. So just to give another shout out, he is a two-time HBCU grad, having graduated from Tuskegee as well as Alabama A&M. And he is a father of two, and we appreciate that, and a husband, of course. So we love a family man, and we love folks that can give back to the work that we do here at UNCF for our member institutions. So very excited about today's presentation and about what Mr. Pope will be sharing and presenting as it relates to helping students with career readiness and preparedness. So very timely given we're, getting to the end of the semester and a lot of our students will be graduating and going into the workforce or into, professional practices. So just wanted to make sure that we're sharing some tips and tricks and opportunities that you may be able to adopt on your campuses as well. So next slide, please. Thank you. So just a couple of housekeeping things that I wanted to share before we get into today's presentation. So we love for you all to have your cameras on. The whole goal of the TLC Talks initiative is to make sure that we're creating an environment and a space where our faculty members across our campuses and other institutions can feel comfortable in building a community of like-mindedness. So if you can share your camera so that we know that you're here and you're present and you feel comfortable to do so, feel free to do so. If you aren't speaking, please mute yourself. If you have any questions or anything like that throughout the presentation, you can always use the chat function and you pop your question in the chat and we'll elevate that up to today's presenter. Or if you want to raise your hand, you can use that feature as well on the bottom of your screen so that we can see you and call on you. But if you aren't speaking, please mute your microphone so that we're not getting any feedback with the audio since we are recording today's presentation. And as I mentioned, so because we are recording, you will get the recording of today's presentation in a later email so that you can share it with your colleagues that weren't able to attend, or you can, disseminate it out to folks that may find the content relevant. We do like to make sure that folks are engaging with the work that we're doing, as well as, sharing it with others so that you're building a community of practice on your campuses as well. We will be asking for you all to provide feedback because feedback is important, and we use that type of information to make sure that we're curating a webinar series that's valuable to you all because you're our stakeholders. So if you would mind sticking around to complete, it's a very brief evaluation form to just tell us about what your experience was in today's webinar, as well as what you would like to see in the future. As I mentioned, we host this webinar series throughout the academic year. So we have a handful of folks on deck for the rest of the semester, but we are developing and planning our fall semester webinar series. So if you're interested in presenting, or if you have something that you would like to share with your colleagues, feel free to let us know and we'll be in conversation to consider or to think about what that presentation would look like for the fall 2025 semester. And always, we want to make sure that people are continuing the conversation. So please like and follow us on LinkedIn. We'll be posting the video on LinkedIn as well. So you can, use the comments section of the LinkedIn page to engage with folks that may not be in the space today. And with that, I will be turning it over to Greer to start his presentation.
Okay, good morning to some and good afternoon to others. I hope that everybody is having a pleasant day so far. So, move this down. So with this two objectives that stood out that I feel that participants should be able to do. Number one is to have a better understanding of how intentionally designed strategies can help your institutions make efforts towards career readiness and preparation for students to be more effective. And then number two, to reevaluate your own institution's efforts towards career readiness and preparation for students, noting possible adjustments and or needed applications for more effectiveness. Okay, so as Geneva shared, my background, I'm a two-time HBCU graduate, and it all plays into a part of the role that I have right now. How so? Well, first, I'm from a native of Huntsville, Alabama. Huntsville, Alabama, during my time was a city that was steadily growing. A lot of the growth came from the space industry, NASA, George C. Marshall Space Flight Center, and the companies that had a lot to do with space exploration. So it was always growing. And in fact, as of 2024, it is now the largest city in the state of Alabama. Now, what's unique about uh, my city is that I grew up in Northwest Huntsville, and in the corner of Northwest Huntsville was Alabama A&M. Now, sometime from time to time, a school like A&M may not get a lot of notoriety, but in my community, graduates from A&M, they were our teachers, our lawyers, our doctors, our barbers. In fact, during the summertime, we would go to summer youth program camps like NYSP, and then you had other um, colleagues, when they got older, they would go to Upward Bound. And so Alabama A&M was not only the heart and the center of that community, but I'm also a third generation of Alabama A&M. So when I finished high school, it wasn't a matter of what college I wanted to go to, which HBCU I wanted to go to, because I was exposed to that culture. And so I left Huntsville, went to Tuskegee, and during my time at Tuskegee, I was undecided in what I wanted to do. But I noticed that every time I came home, it seemed like younger males, particularly, would kind of look up to me and ask me, what is it like out there? What is it like being on your own, away from home? And so by the time I became a junior, it clicked. I decided I wanted to go in education. So again, I graduated from Tuskegee, came back home to Huntsville, and decided to major in elementary education. And right when I was about to graduate, I was just helping a friend move to Memphis, Tennessee. And I decided, well, why not, while I'm in Memphis, apply for a job? It wouldn't hurt. Um, I applied for the job. About a week later, they asked me to come by for an interview. And during the interview, I got the job right then and there. I was needed. And so once I stepped into education, decided to become an educator, I never looked back. So I came to Memphis, and during my time in Memphis, I've had an interesting path in the education field. Um, Initially, I started as an elementary school teacher, 10 years at a school in Fraser, Memphis, called Hawkins Mill Elementary. Um, for most of the time, I would probably be the only Black male that they would see as a teacher in that neighborhood. I did a lot of good work there, even got a chess club going where we competed against optional schools, and they did a real good job. But during my time outside of my life as an educator, I'm also in ministry. And so for a minute, I took some time off to focus on ministry that started in that area of Memphis. And when I decided to go back into education, I found myself at a job vocational training center called the Benjamin L. Hooks Job Corps Center. There, my job was to teach literacy to students that were 16 to 25 year olds. And you see them in the top left corner reading. Um, and that was a good experience, a powerful experience. But again, wherever we planted, sometimes we know that there's more out there. We want to rise higher. And so my next goal was to go into adult education. And I found myself um, at ASU Mid-South in West Memphis, Arkansas, where I was hired as a success coach slash academic counselor. This was a role that was made possible due to a PBI Title III grant. And in my role, I had the awesome task of working with young men in a mentoring initiative that we call Brother to Brother. Brother to Brother grew so much that we decided to host our own conference. And in the top or right, what you see is a picture from our Men of Color conference that we began hosting back in 2017, and it's still going on to this day. And so you see my path from elementary to job vocational center to community college. And while I was at the community college, I guess they felt that I wasn't doing too bad of a job. So they named me director of that PBI Title III grant. and I assumed that role for 3 years, and I loved it. It was a good experience, but what it did, it took me away from the students, and I miss having that direct relationship, that contact with the students. So I decided to just go ahead and see what else is out there for me. And so I moved on, and now I'm at Lane College. I came to Lane in January of 2024. Lane is a small HBCU in Jackson, Tennessee. Jackson is population is maybe 100,000, maybe a little bit less, maybe a little bit more. The ratio at Lane College is 21, one teacher for every 21 students. A liberal arts school. But my goal at Lane was to become a teacher. I had my eye on associate professor of education position. I interviewed for that position, and I was told that I was the #1 candidate. But someone higher up, he looked at my background and he was impressed by a lot of things, and he felt that I could be even a bigger help for a need that they had, a larger need that they had. And so instead of settling for the professor of education job, I took a position that was titled the director of the testing and learning center. So being the director of the testing and learning center, the task before me, as you see, is to institutionalize more consistent efforts directed towards students as they transition from the classroom to a career. So in other words, rather than just being a teacher directly, I put a lot of effort into helping students prepare for life after graduation. Um, and so this is where I'm going to now drive home as far as career readiness and preparation. Now, keep in mind, this is a role that's slightly different. Um, I think it was good that when I got here, my supervisor at the time, he put me in a space where I was sort of by myself. What I believe what his thinking was is that if he just put me in too quick, maybe I would be influenced by others. He wanted some out of the box thinking, if that makes sense to you. He wanted someone with a different approach, and that's what he saw in me. And so in the steps to making things happen, I observed, I asked questions, I listened, I make notes, whether it was the students, whether it's staff that's been here for a minute, even people that either graduated from Lane or had some type of connections with Lane. Then, of course, the second thing that I did was I created surveys for students, for teachers, just to know how they're feeling, what were their mindsets, about life after graduation. And once I began to get a feel of what's going on with Lane, what I began to understand was that a lot of efforts towards career preparation and readiness was being done, but it was spread out by different people in different areas. And there may have been one person that oversaw everything, but they could not give it a lot of detail and attention, those efforts. And I was brought in to do exactly that, to put more attention to the effort of career readiness and preparation. And so with the internal team that I put together, again, we had in this internal team, we had 2 students, a senior vice president, junior vice president, a staff or 2, faculty, and I just picked their brains maybe once a week or once every other week for ideas. And once I felt like something was brewing. I took the name from our graduating senior president. Her name is Sydney Jackson, and I called my efforts beyond the stage. And so beyond the stage, I took it and ran with it. And once I ran with it, I began to plan for the fall semester and the spring semester. Now, keep in mind that all of this planning was based upon what's being shared, what I've learned, and what I feel, how I feel we should move as far as career readiness and preparation. So here you see what I did or what I planned in the fall. In September, I invited, and I started off with just seniors initially. I had a meeting with the seniors, and I just a talk session with how ready are you for life after college. I had a survey that asked questions, but I just talked with them. And what I found was, while you have some students that they know what they want to do, they already have their connections. You have others that are confused, or they need some direction. And then you have I think most of them, they have talents and they have capabilities, but someone like me can be more direct as far as putting things in place for them. And so on the 26th of September, we did a session called Networking Through Social Media. As you know, these kids these days, this is a different generation. Everything is on social media, but I made sure that professionally they understood the value of LinkedIn. And I focused on LinkedIn on that session, but I was still learning some things also. Our institution has incorporated, has been using an app called Handshake that's been valuable. And I'll talk more about Handshake a little bit later. But I brought in someone that was a social media specialist to show them how to navigate LinkedIn and use it to their advantage. And then in October, I started doing a resume and interview workshop, just having them practice with their skills, just being ready. And keep in mind that there are other faculty and staff that do the same thing. But again, for me and in my role, it's a little bit more intentional and more direct as well. And I kind of take the weight off of them. On the 22nd, the goal was to have a mock career fair. And what I did was I set up in the lobby and I just gathered a table, and anybody that wanted to practice interviewing for whatever their dream job was, I've just sat at the table and let them come, and we just practiced, and I gave them input on how they could be more effective in interviewing and sharing, and even looked at their resumes that they had at that time. In November, I invited a more recent Lane College graduate to come back and talk with students and share with them what life has been like since graduating from Lane College. So that was in the fall. Now the spring and what's going on now. Of course, when you graduate, one of the things that most students are concerned about is how would they make money? How would they use their money? What can they do with their money? Some students are fortunate that when they go to college, maybe they're not in debt just yet, and they're fortunate not to make some mistakes. Some students may have find themselves in a financial bind. So I had someone from a local bank to come and talk to them about all the financial matters that they may be concerned about. And around this time, I was asked, now there's a lot of transitioning going on campus with a new president and departments changing and things like that. So now I've targeted not only seniors, but juniors as well. I had another a speaker to come and share with students, or I invited that person to come. And then February, sometimes when you plan things, it may not go the way you hope it would go. So what you do is you kind of tweak it. And so the goal initially was to have a fashion show on February the 13th. But what I discovered was that they had already done some fashion shows, so it wasn't a lot of interest. So what I've done, and it's still a work in progress, we have some film students on campus. I asked them if they would put together a video for me where they would have students dressing up, introducing themselves, what their major is, and where they aspire to be in life 5 years from now and 10 years from now, career-wise. And it's still a work in progress. I was hoping to get it done and to share in this presentation, but it didn't quite happen. But still, I was able to involve a lot of students in this, and it looks like they've been having fun so far. Networking refresher. Um, this time we talked about LinkedIn, but we also talked about Handshake. Handshake is an app where students can apply for jobs internally on campus and jobs outside of campus. So there's a group of us that post jobs, internal jobs, work study jobs, and things like that. But then there's another group like myself. When companies reach out to me and they say that they're interested in hiring our students, I will post those jobs for students on campus externally. And networking through Handshake allows that opportunity. And I will still hit more on Handshake in just a minute. So um, I've even though I have you see there's a date set up in March on March the 7th for a resume and interview tune up. I've at this point, I've made myself open to all students. They can come into my office at any time, long as I'm not in a meeting or anything like that, and I can help them with being interviewed. I can look over their resume and everything, and it's picking up. It's like they know who Mr. Pope is and why I'm here. And then March the 27th, which is coming up, our career fair. Now, what I've learned, with Lane is that they've had a lot of good events, health expos, but I was told over and over again when I mentioned this in the fall that our school hasn't had a career fair in recent years. And I initially thought about doing it in the fall, but I felt like I had a lot of work to do before I would get there, and plus I'm new to the Jackson area. And even though I've started to make connections, I wasn't ready to do it in the fall. But through the encouragement of not only some colleagues, but some students, they are like, go ahead, Mr. Pope, go ahead and make it happen. So the 27th, we will have our health fair, and I will touch on that again in just a minute. But this is all that we have planned scheduled for the spring, but it doesn't include other things that may happen, like there will be opportunities for me. There are always opportunities for me to take students to certain schools, and in one school in particular, two times I've done this, and um, last spring and last fall, which was to take graduating seniors to my hometown graduate school of Alabama A&M. And you talk about fun for me. Plus, we have a MOU, a memo of understanding agreement with Alabama A&M. So that opportunity was purposely created so that among the many options that Lane College students will have is to go to Alabama A&M and no charge of tuition and we have some tuition off if they're, would consider Alabama A&M. And to go, I mean, it's I can't really describe the feeling that I had when I first began to take my students home and show them around and say, well, this is the campus that I literally grew up on. And then to see students that got accepted to Alabama A&M and it would eventually go there in just a short time, it just, it just did something real special. It put together like, this is really like the icing on the cake on why I do this job. So, right. So here are some pictorial highlights. When I first was trying to do my presentation or get the word out about beyond the stage, where's the obvious place that you can find students? In the cafeteria. So here you see two students from my team, the senior class president and the junior class president. They were helping me get the word out among the students that, hey, we have something going on here. I believe this was one of the networking events, but not only that, but sometimes I would use other staff and have them to come in. Like, for example, I'm sure at your school, there are seniors that are on point with everything that they need to have in place for its graduation, but sometimes they need some reminders, and I brought in someone to just remind them of what they need to have prepared as they graduate. I believe this was the financial workshop, and I don't know if you can see the picture with all the celebration, the graduation. This is where this is what it all boils down to. Graduation time. When you've done anything as an educator to help students prepare for life beyond stage, I mean, you've done your job. And this was last spring, and was my first graduation, and it presented a highlight for me. It was just a good moment. So here, one of my highlights, this is a video. First of all, Lovely Day is like a theme song at Alabama A&M played by their band. And this was a highlight of some graduating seniors at one of the times we visited Alabama A&M. Okay. Okay, so I mentioned that my office is open with all of the activities that's in place. Whenever a student wants to come and prepare for an interview or wants me to look at the resume, they can. And so this was a student just came in one day and we just did a mock interview session with him. Of course. College, and I worked a lot with advanced imaging. I did applied machine learning techniques to different kinds of data sets. I worked with extensive cancer data sets containing a vast number of images, upwards of 200,000. I've worked on nuclear qualification frameworks. And so my experience with imaging, specifically related to AI, has just grown over those 4 years. And so now, career-wise, I'm looking to continue to follow in that path. And I think Star Technologies, with the work they're doing with advanced imaging and neuromorphic computing, I think I find my space here. Okay. Okay. Of course. Now, something else that this was already in place before I got here, but amazingly, a lot of students didn't know about it. But because of my role, I'm in a position better than any other faculty and staff to let students know about it. We have our own career closet, and I would have to say this, I mean, I like to dress nice, but sometimes I'm a little leery of, what people, getting something else from somebody. But when I looked in the closet, I'm like, whoa, this is some nice stuff in here. And a lot of the clothes come from Lane College alumni, just wanted to it's some nice things in here. And so this is right by my office, and any student, male or female, can come and they can go in the clothing closet whenever they need something for interview or to dress up, no questions asked. Okay, so the culminating event, of course, is our Lane College Career Fair and Health Expo. Now, in putting this together, I think I shared how I was apprehensive because it hadn't been done in recent years, and I'm still new to the area, but I was encouraged to go ahead and make it happen. And it's happening. So initially, I have a colleague that we've worked together at a previous institution, and it just so happens at a large institution at the University of Memphis. He is the director of career services, and he is just one of many whose brain that I would pick. And so I went and to visit and to see what he was doing, how he put together their career fair, University of Memphis, and I took notes and I thought, well, maybe, we can do this. Maybe I can get a few employers and a couple of graduate schools and we can set up shop. But above me, the powers that be above me, they started rubbing their hands and like, okay, Pope, you know what? You're thinking too small. Let's do it big. Let's do it big. And so that's the thing now. We're doing it big right now. Presently, we have close to 20 people that's registered, and there'll probably be well more in a week from now because I know that others have given me their verbal confirmation that they want to be a part of. And then what I've learned is that in the area, in the community, in this part of Tennessee, West Tennessee, and the Jackson area, there are businesses that's been waiting for Lane to do something like this, and they want to see what our students all about. They want to see what they're capable of doing. And so this culminating event is really going to be the icing on the cake. And when this day is over, all of my efforts between now and next week is going to be focused on making sure that this goes well. All right. So in summing up, challenges into success. As you know, anytime, no job is perfect, no opportunity is perfect. There are always going to be some challenges. In my meditations, I've been trying to learn some Stoic philosophy, Marcus Aurelius and things like that, where in negative and stressful situations, you learn to be positive. You learn to look at the good in everything. So in this effort with Beyond the Stage and turning challenges to success, these are some things that stands out for me. The first challenge, of course, when I assumed this role was that I was new to the institution. While my background, I'm familiar with the HBCU role and things like that. Still, there were some things about Lane and the Jackson area that I didn't know. But on the other hand, the success is, and that's what my supervisor saw in me. He thought that I could bring something out the box, something new and something fresh. And in fact, the person that hired me, he told me 2 or 3 weeks ago that he felt that I was doing way more than what's expected and doing a good job that he thought. And of course, when somebody above you tells you that, it makes you feel good. Um, Unfamiliarity with the tax. So again, being in this role, even though I've been in the field of education for a number of years, I never really focused a lot on career readiness, except for maybe when I was working at the Job Vocational Center, the Job Corps Center. So what do you do when you don't know it all? You reach out to colleagues with expertise. Again, one of my closest colleagues now is a person that I worked with at a previous institution who is now over career services at the University of Memphis. I even reached out to people um, that does career readiness and preparation at some of my previous institution to pick their brain. And then I take what I've learned from them to Lane and see what can be used and what I can throw away. Um, I mentioned before the transitions that is taking place above me and around me. But the one thing that has been successful, even in my roles, I've done a lot outside of career readiness and preparedness, but the consistency of career readiness to students, it's to the point now that a lot of students, they know my name. When you're new on campus and you're reaching out and you've called like I've called, I was always taught to be intrusive when you're trying to help students. Some students may be like, well, who is Mr. Pope and why is he reaching out to me? But then when they see consistency, they put two and two together. Oh, so you can help us. You can help us get ready for job opportunities beyond the stage of graduation. And when it gets to the point that now you have students calling you, emailing you, asking you to look in at their resume and or wanting to prepare for an interview, that consistency helps. And so again, now I'm associated with the one that can help them with that career transition. Centralization, again, a lot of the efforts were already being done by good people, talented people, but now it's not only consistent, but I found that people are still willing to collaborate and work and of course, I could not do a lot of these things without such collaboration. So, I mean, like today, um, I sent out all of a message to all the seniors about their senior exit exams, and I let the division chairs and department chairs know, and at the same time, I would also feed them information about career readiness, and they are willing to feed me the same thing, because we realize we're working together, we're helping each other out. And even like with job opportunities, there are still some things about the area that I don't know as far as jobs, but because they've been here for a minute, one instructor in education may know how to contact the Jackson Madison County school system, so collaboration is going on. And then limited resources. Now, I'm sure a lot of you out there are at schools, institutions, they have a lot of money and everything, but I use this joke all the time. The person who sort of assumed this role as she was leaving, I got a chance to pick her brain just a little bit. And I asked her about a budget, and she was like, "What budget?" But what she was trying to let me know in a funny way was that I would have to be creative. And what I've learned is that there are creative ways to get things done, especially with regards to career readiness and preparation. For example, the clothing closet, it doesn't cost money, but we have all those clothes there just waiting for students. So what's next? So it was about 2 weeks ago that I was told that my current title is officially Director of Career Services. I shared that I do a lot of things outside of career readiness and preparation. So I've been at times, I've taught what's called our career pathway initiative classes. I've taught that from time to time, but now being the director of career services, I'm expected to teach more sessions of those classes. Initially, It was easy to do as far as maintain a spreadsheet of files with students and make notes. But now my role involves not just seniors and juniors, but it also includes sophomores and freshmen. So that's a work in progress there. Strengthen networks with potential employers in grad schools. It's to the point now that I have some good solid relationships. Like when I was putting this fair together, there were some people that, because we had already done some collaboration, they're like, "Oh, Pope, we got you. We're gonna be there. Career Fair, March 27. We got you." But still, there's still more work to do for me in this area. Um, Maintain records of students beyond the stage of graduation. I'm sure you all can agree that it feels so good when a former student has, they've graduated, they're out in the world, they're making things happen. It just inspires you, it helps you to feel good. And so I hope to also maintain records of students as they after they graduate as well. And as Geneva shared, it just so happened back in February, my I was approved to be a doctoral candidate, and my title that I will be studying between now and the next 6 to 8 months, exploring lived experience with HBCU participants in the Career Pathways Initiative. Right. Now, there are a lot of good resources that's been helpful for me. When I talked about doing surveys, Survey Monkey is my go-to account. There are lots of good websites for resume building. I've been using Canva lately. I knew LinkedIn has it set up where one can take their profile and create a resume as well. I know it's being upgraded, but that's probably possible now. Then of course there's Handshake that we are using effectively and consistently now here at Lane College. And then of course there's LinkedIn. And then finally, for those of you that are studying or doing research, in my own research and in preparation for working on my doctorate, the names of Owens and Njoku, they stood out. So I thought it would be good to just share two different articles for them in case you wanted to do your own research. And that's my presentation in a nutshell.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing all of that good insight about, the progress that you've made on Lane College or Lane's campus, excuse me, and how you've been able to engage with students in a really intentional way, as well as engaging with the community and your network and the region. I think you shared some really good factoids and tidbits about how we can think about what it looks like for our students to go out into the world and be successful at whatever they choose to do, and giving them the confidence, right? So having the mechanisms and the tools and the community, as well as the confidence to go out and be great and do so. So we do have about 10 minutes or so. If folks have questions for Greer, we're here. I see a question in the chat. Dr. Wilson, do you want to unmute, or would you like me to read?
Yeah, I can unmute. That's fine. Yes,
Yay.
sure. So I'm wondering, and I see that you're certainly working toward, those extracurricular opportunities. Wonder if you have internships or experiential learning in your curriculum. And you mentioned about, graduation and finance. We have some tools here within North Carolina, like College Fund North Carolina, or Pell Grant, and they will help students with financial planning after graduation. I wonder if you have that, within your scope there of the state.
Okay. As far as the first question, as far as internships, again, that is something that's continuing to develop on campus. I didn't quite know everything that was going on as far as opportunities within and externally on campus, but I'm still learning some things. Um, Fortunately for me, again, internally, there are internships and things on campus, but it just so happens that as I was preparing for this career fair, I've had a number of companies. In fact, yesterday there was a company in Jackson that said that they would not be able to come to the career fair, but they wanted to meet with me sometime in April about possible internships for students. A day before, probably the day before that, I had another email for the exact same thing. So that's something that I'm learning and about and making note about and letting the students know about as well. Um, it's just, again, I'm a work in progress as far as my awareness, and but I believe I'm stepping up to the plate and making things happen for the students.
Awesome. Any other questions from folks in the room? I'd be also curious to hear if there are similar initiatives or projects across our campuses, and if you are on the faculty side, if you are tapped in with your career services or alumni affairs divisions on your campus to make sure that you're engaging with, the current students that are going out into the workforce, as well as the alumni that may already be experiencing, corporate life or post-secondary school. Yes, I see that Shaw uses Handshake as well. So yeah, really cool to see how Handshake has come up in the past couple of years as a technology tool that really serves our institutions at a relatively low cost, I'd say. So that's good to see that a lot of our campuses are adopting that type of tool for students to find and source and look for corporate opportunities. Awesome. So yeah, in the last couple of minutes, so you may have seen in the chat that we did post the evaluation form for you all to submit and share your feedback about today's presentation as well as other presentations in the future. And if you want to get in touch with us, you feel free to do so. You can get in touch with us, either myself, Geneva Dampere, or our coordinator or the Teaching and Learning Center, more broadly speaking, via the email addresses that you see on the screen. And we also have the LinkedIn site. You can use the QR code to access the LinkedIn page that we have, or you can simply go on LinkedIn and look up UNCF Teaching and Learning Center. So really excited about continuing the conversation and moving forward with folks that are interested in hearing more about how TLC Talks is, or what we have in store. So I did want to plug, and you see that Christine just put into the chat, our next session for April will be focused on cultivating classroom connectivity through technology, and that will be led by Dr. Dolores McBride from Morris College. So very excited to think about technology and how folks are using it in the classroom, if there's some ways that we can share that may, enhance your innovation. So feel free to register for that session so that you don't miss it. And if there's nothing else, we'll stick around until the end of the hour for folks to, unmute or ask questions or just chat. This is just an open space. But if nothing else, have a lovely afternoon or morning, depending on what time it is where you are. And we hope to see you next month.
Thank you all. And continue to speak positivity towards our career fair.
Yes.
Thank you.
Sending you all the good luck for next week, that's for sure.